The courtroom in downtown Los Angeles was a study in contrasts. Sterile fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a clinical glow on the polished wood of the judge's bench, where Clarence Thomas sat, his presence imposing, his black robe absorbing the light like a void. His face was unreadable, eyes sharp behind his glasses, as he surveyed the room with the weight of decades on the Supreme Court, now distilled into this high-profile tax fraud case. The gallery was packed but eerily silent. No cameras allowed, just the rustle of papers and the occasional cough breaking the tension. Jack Nicholson sat at the defense table, his dark suit slightly loose on his 87-year-old frame, his iconic smirk nowhere to be found, replaced by a tight-lipped expression that betrayed nothing but a faint tremor in his hands. The judge's voice cut through the stillness, deep and deliberate. Case number 84213. The State versus John Joseph Nicholson. Charges: tax fraud, evasion of taxes, and willful falsification of financial records. The words hung heavy, each syllable a hammer, striking the legacy of a man who'd defined Hollywood for generations. The prosecutor, a lean man named Daniel Weiss, stood, his tie too tight, his eyes glinting with the zeal of someone who'd waited years for a case this big. He laid out the accusations with ruthless clarity. Jack Nicholson, whose fortune was whispered to exceed $400 million, had allegedly orchestrated a scheme to funnel profits from real estate sales, properties collectively valued at over $12 million, through an offshore company in the Caymans, dodging $4.2 million in taxes across 3 separate transactions in 2018, 2020, and 2022. Weiss's voice was steady but laced with disdain, as if the audacity of it all offended him personally. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate, repeated, and meticulously planned. The jury, a mix of Angelenos from teachers to retirees, leaned forward, some scribbling notes, others staring at Jack, trying to square the man who'd played rebels and madmen with the one now accused of cheating the system. Jack's attorney, Evelyn Harper, a seasoned litigator with a reputation for untangling impossible cases, rose to her feet, her voice smooth as silk but firm. My client is an actor, not a financier. He relied on trusted advisors to manage his wealth. He had no knowledge of any illicit activity. The words were polished, rehearsed, but they landed thinly, like a script read one too many times. Weiss smirked, barely hiding his contempt, and called his first witness. The room seemed to tighten, the air growing heavier, as a man in his late 50s, graying at the temples, took the stand. Michael Reed, Nicholson's former financial advisor, who'd parted ways with the actor a year ago under murky circumstances. Reed's hands fidgeted as he swore the oath, his eyes darting toward Jack, who sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Weiss wasted no time. Mr. Reed, did Mr. Nicholson know about the offshore accounts? Reed hesitated, then leaned into the microphone, his voice low but clear. He knew. He laughed when I warned him it was illegal. Said he'd played men who broke rules his whole career. Why should he be any different? A murmur rippled through the jury, quickly silenced by Thomas's gavel. Jack's face remained still, but his fingers curled slightly, the only sign of the storm brewing inside. The room felt like it was teetering on the edge of something raw, something that would peel back the layers of a man who'd spent a lifetime hiding behind charisma and fame. Whatever came next, it was going to cut deeper, and the weight of that promise hung in the air, daring everyone to keep watching. The Los Angeles courtroom seemed to shrink as Michael Reed's words lingered, his accusations slicing through the air like a blade. Jack Nicholson had known the offshore accounts were illegal, had laughed it off, as if laws were just another script he could rewrite. The jury's eyes darted between Reed and Jack, who sat motionless at the defense table, his 87-year-old frame rigid, the faintest tremor in his jaw the only crack in his stoic facade. Clarence Thomas, presiding from the bench, adjusted his glasses, his gaze piercing as he called for order, his gavel's sharp crack silencing the murmurs that had erupted among the spectators. The prosecutor, Daniel Weiss, paced before the witness stand, his voice measured but carrying a venomous edge as he pressed Reed further. So, Mr. Reed, you're telling this court that Mr. Nicholson not only knew about the tax evasion but actively endorsed it? Reed, Sweat beading on his forehead, nodded, his fingers twisting the edge of his jacket. Yes, he called it playing the game. Said he'd spent his life outsmarting the system on screen, so why not off it? He signed off on every transaction. 2018, 2020, 2022. I have emails, memos, even a recorded call where he told me to make it disappear. The courtroom inhaled collectively, the weight of betrayal settling in. Jack's attorney, Evelyn Harper, shot to her feet, her voice cutting through the tension. Objection, Your Honor. The witness is offering hearsay without corroboration. We haven't seen these alleged documents. Clarence Thomas leaned forward, his expression unyielding. Overruled. The prosecution has submitted the evidence for review. You'll have your chance, Ms. Harper. Weiss wasted no time, projecting a series of emails onto a screen for the jury. Crisp, damning exchanges where Jack's name appeared alongside phrases like, keep it quiet, and offshore is clean. One email, dated March 2020, had Jack's unmistakable tone. Mike, don't bore me with the fine print. Just make sure the IRS doesn't come knocking. The jury's faces hardened, some shaking their heads, others scribbling furiously. A retired school teacher in the front row clutched her notepad, her lips pursed as if personally offended. Jack's eyes remained fixed on the table, but his fingers, once steady, now tapped a slow, uneven rhythm, betraying the churn beneath his calm exterior. Harper tried to counter, her cross-examination of Reed sharp and relentless. Mr. Reed, isn't it true you were fired for mismanaging funds, that you're here to deflect blame onto my client? Reed's face flushed, but he held firm. I was fired because I wouldn't keep lying for him. I told him the offshore accounts were a risk, that the IRS was closing in. He didn't care. He said, I'm Jack Nicholson. They'll never touch me. The words landed like a punch, and for the first time, Jack's head tilted slightly, his eyes meeting Reed's for a fleeting moment. A flash of anger, or maybe regret, impossible to tell. Weiss called another witness, a forensic accountant named Sarah Lynn, whose testimony was a slow, methodical dismantling of Jack's financial empire. She presented charts showing the flow of money through shell companies, each transaction a deliberate step to obscure profits from real estate deals in Malibu, Aspen, and London. This wasn't an accident, Lynn said, her voice dry but authoritative. The pattern is consistent across 3 years. It required intent, knowledge, and oversight. The jury was riveted, their attention unwavering as Lynn pointed to a 2022 sale, a Malibu beachfront property sold for $8 million, with $2.3 million funneled through a Cayman trust, untaxed. Harper tried to poke holes, suggesting clerical errors or miscommunication, but Lynn's responses were airtight, her data unassailable. The room grew heavier with each revelation, the air thick with the sense that Jack's carefully crafted image was unraveling. A third witness, a former assistant named Carla Torres, added another layer. She spoke quietly, almost reluctantly, about overhearing Jack on a call in 2021, joking about screwing the tax man while sipping whiskey in his home office. He wasn't stressed, she said, her voice trembling. He thought it was funny, like he was untouchable. Harper's objection was swift. Hearsay, Your Honor. But Thomas allowed it, his face impassive, though his eyes lingered on Jack, as if measuring the man against the myth. The prosecution's case was building like a wave, each witness adding momentum, each document tightening the noose. Yet Jack remained silent, his silence louder than any outburst, his weathered face a mask that hid a storm of emotions, defiance, shame, or something else entirely. The jury watched him, some with pity, others with scorn, as if grappling with the fall of a titan. Weiss, sensing the moment, paused before his next move, letting the tension coil tighter. He turned to the jury, his voice low but deliberate. What we're seeing here isn't just a crime. It's a betrayal of trust, of responsibility, of the very system that made Mr. Nicholson's wealth possible. The words stung, and for a moment, Jack's shoulders sagged, almost imperceptibly, as if the weight of his own legend was finally too much to bear. The courtroom was a pressure cooker now, every eye on Jack, waiting for him to crack, to speak, to do something that would tip the scales. Something bigger was coming, something that would strip away the last of the Hollywood sheen and leave only the man, raw and exposed. You could feel it in the way Clarence Thomas leaned forward, in the way the jury held their breath, in the way the room itself seemed to pulse with the promise of a reckoning. The courtroom held its breath as Jack Nicholson rose, his 87-year-old frame steady despite the weight of the moment. Clarence Thomas's eyes locked onto him, unyielding, as Jack spoke, his voice low and raspy. "I'm 87. I've lived a life most can't imagine. But I made a mistake. I wanted quiet, not scrutiny, and trusted the wrong people. I'm no saint, but I'm no villain either, just an old man who thought wealth could shield him." The jury stirred, some softened, others unmoved. Weiss pushed for blood, demanding prison, but Harper's plea for leniency, citing Jack's age and charity work, swayed the room. Thomas delivered the verdict. Guilty, fine of $3.4 million, no jail time. The gavel fell and silence swallowed the room. Jack nodded, his face unreadable, and walked out, head high but alone. Was it relief or shame in his eyes? The question lingered, unanswered, as the door closed behind him.